Buddy, welcome. Welcome. Let's see how we're doing here. Um, 1 second, running a quick little test. Okay, I think we're in business. Good morning. Good morning, all. Good morning, one, and good morning, all. We're looking at um, a couple of things on here. I think there we go. I think we have some interesting opportunities coming up with Hood. I'm going to show my screen here in just a moment. And we're going to talk a little bit about what Hood might be up to. So Hood's got earnings coming today. There's plenty of things to watch for on this and kind of see how and where this behaves. Um, okay, let's go with that. Um, but I want to just look at a couple of details here. Hood's got an interesting chart that I think is worth showing. So I'm going to pull that up real super quick. All right. And all right, let's go to this. Okay, hopefully everybody is seeing my screen. So we've got we've got a couple of things we want to keep an eye on here. Hood is reporting earnings later today, and I'm not making any trade recommendations quite yet here, but I think there are a couple of interesting things to note and to look at. Now, remember, Hood has been um, they've come off some pretty high levels. So if we look at the high back here, this was October 2025 when a lot of tech stocks and certainly fintech stocks made some highs and then they kind of dipped off of those highs. And so what we want to keep an eye on here is whether or not there's any kind of reasonable opportunity to do anything with Hood. Um, in my post yesterday, I'm done buying the dip. And I think Hood is in a pretty interesting spot, not to just be a dip, right? If we look at examples like Microsoft, Microsoft might be done dipping. They have earnings later today as well. Microsoft's down 30%, and just looking ugly. Hood, on the other hand, took this big dive. There was this nice dip from those October highs to, the lows of about March of this year, and it dropped a good 58%. But what has it done since those lows? We had a rally of about 86%. So Hood is certainly coming off those lows. We're not in any kind of dip territory. Right now, it's about 40% above those lows. But I'm looking at this, and if we look, if we just go to kind of the simplest version right now, my yellow line is just a 200-day, moving average. This is a 200 period moving average. So whatever time frame you're looking at it on, I think there's some interesting things to happen there. Hood has been obviously on a crazy run, for quite a while. Then we had that October high over here. This is October 2025 highs. So we had that high and then we had this big dip, but it looks like we've kind of bottomed here a little bit. Now, doesn't mean it can't go lower and so on, but momentum is in its early stages of making its way up. And, we're going to look for this kind of, this kind of stuff, right? It's up. Now it's down a little bit. So we'll see, are we going to be able to take out these highs? Or are we headed, back below some of this support that's kind of running through here, right? We have quite a bit of support. That was great support back here in earlier, kind of mid 2025. Great resistance. Now we're back to support. So we're at least at a good spot where there's reason to believe that Hood could, have a little bit of a reaction off this area. Number one. We're just going to look at the technicals for just 2 seconds. Number two, we see on the longer term chart, this is certainly not in any kind of downtrend, right? Now, we do have a lower high, so that's something to keep an eye on. I'm kind of wondering, as I look at Hood right here, I'm kind of thinking to myself, does Hood have, are we looking at like some, and again, we're just focusing on the technical side of it for just a moment. But does Hood have some massive bull flag in place? And I think it is at least a likely scenario. So if we look at kind of this big rally and then this long consolidation lower, this is very much bull flag territory. So we'll see what it does. If this creates some other type of pattern that starts getting real bearish on us, then so be it. We'll see how it goes and how it plays out and what ends up happening. But for the moment, I think that this is at least interesting to look at and say, okay, we still have momentum on our side on the longer time frames. The daily chart certainly is still in recovery mode, 40% off those lows. It's had a little bit of a dip recently, but we'll see how it goes. Now, obviously, we have the FOMC and interest rate news today, so that's going to be something to keep an eye on. But let's talk numbers a little bit about what Hood, where some of the challenges are and so on. Now, Hood's been getting crushed because it's kind of not kind of following. It's been very correlated to the crypto play until just recently, right? Hood made this big recovery. If we look at kind of that low March 2026, starts making those highs. If you look at these this is kind of our big dip here in Hood where it started to recover, and Bitcoin has not recovered. So we're kind of seeing this decoupling happening here where Robinhood and Bitcoin are not quite as tightly correlated as they have been for the last 6 or 8 months, right? Or prior 6 or 8 months until just recently. And so now Hood's starting to make this recovery while crypto has not yet. So if crypto, remains soft, that's going to be a big drag on Hood, because remember, in the last earnings that we saw over here, which was April of this year, pretty good little dip, but Hood still recovered. But remember, crypto trading revenue is significant for Hood, and nobody's trading crypto unless they're selling it. And so, but now, we certainly do see the tide turning just a little bit, as far as we see a little bit more interest in the crypto side of things. We're starting to see more talk about crypto. More buyers. There's more buyers in the crypto space. I don't particularly love crypto, care for crypto, nothing personal to anybody that does, but I think that crypto will continue to drag on Hood because that's significant for revenues, but Hood has started to pull away. If you look at, let's just do a quick comparison chart to Hood here. So if we go back kind of over here, come on now. We see quite the correlation with crypto and Hood, up, down, up, very, very, very correlated. There we go. Until kind of this recent run here where Hood really started taking off and crypto really kind of started staying lower. And so we had all of this real tight correlation. Let me just show that chart just a little bit better here. Sorry, my scale is all off. So still an okay correlation here, but it was kind of this earlier 2026 where we had this big diverging, right? Hood took off, Bitcoin stayed low. Now they may be coming back to meet each other a little bit, but crypto has stayed flat while Hood has had this nice rally and made a big run. So I'm certainly looking at what the revenues are going to look like from earnings in the crypto side of things. They're small, but we've got other things that are picking up. Option volume's good. Certainly we want to see how the take rate is, right? What Robinhood gets to keep of all this option volume, what they keep in commissions and so on. We'll see if there's any bump up in crypto trading with Hood. And then, it's pretty interesting. Hood over the last couple of earnings has beat revenue, but not done great on earnings per share. But going into this earnings, we've seen a couple of big banks and, analysts and so on raising their target on Hood from, the high 90s into the 120s. We saw KeyBank go from 100 to 125. So we've seen a few of the banks out there and analysts and investment banks and so on raising their profit target for Hood going into this earnings. And here's a great signal that I think is worth watching, and it's about as good as the Kramer signal. Obviously, Kramer just gets, anytime he likes something, everybody else hates it and says, that stock is doomed. Well, if you notice, if anyone's been kind of keeping track of this, Kathy Wood cut Robinhood Holdings about a week ago. So Kathy Wood's been getting out. Haven't even looked at ARK. I know ARK has made a bit of a comeback, but ARK is, sure, it's come back a little bit. The glory days are long, long away. Still 50% off highs. So Kathy Wood, bless her heart, think she's cool. I would never put money with her. And as she has been cutting exposure to Hood, that almost is a contrarian signal enough for me to say, great, I'm interested. Now, I'm not making any kind of recommendation here. If you trade earnings, if you don't trade earnings, there's a lot of things to look at. Implied volatility, the IV rank is crazy high. The volatility is high. Option premiums are paying like crazy going into this earnings. Very common for an earnings play. That's pretty normal. That happens quite a bit. But we got some pretty high numbers. So if you're an option seller, there is some decent opportunities here. I love selling options. I love option premiums, and I love working with those to, get shares and keep shares of things that I like. So I like selling options to gain shares. And I think, something along those lines is the play that I would be taking on Hood. Selling options to get some shares and keep some money. And so that's what I'll be kind of looking at and probably doing with a Hood play here. I just think that it's at an interesting enough spot that probably there's going to be some activity around this earnings, and and I'm going to be watching it, and I'll probably be having some trades in place beforehand. I'm going to talk about this. I'll have a little bit specifically written out for in my Substack posts on this and kind of how I'm going to handle it, or some scenarios that you can use to play something like this. But I think Hood is worth watching. I think there's going to be plenty of good activity and opportunity here. I never try to predict direction. I think that's ridiculous. I like to look at momentum. Where are things going generally, right? If you're interested in watching, PayPal, and you're going, okay, this is the dip. Well, unless you have insider information with, the Stripe play or whatever, people that have been buying the dip and looking for bottoms on PayPal, unless they have very specific insider information or some crazy ridiculous strategy, they for 4 years you've been getting hammered, 5 years you've been getting hammered, right? And so I don't like that kind of stuff. I do like this kind of stuff, right? Where we see that generally this has been going up, and it's gotten a little messy recently, but we've had some good runs off these lows. We've had some little pullbacks here. This is very much, if we just look, generally speaking, this is very much in a rising channel. For the short term as well as for the long term, right? This is just running up, and we're bumping along these levels and so on. But for the long term as well, this is also very much in an upward swing. So I do like pullbacks in that area, but buying these big dips, stocks that are hammered and that are way down, yes, they'll eventually come back and make some sort of recovery, maybe, but cheap can always get cheaper, and you end up sitting in these things too long, tying up too much capital. And I think honestly, a lot of people use long-term investing as an excuse. Oh, I'm a long-term investor. Okay, great. Does that mean you want to sit in a 50% drawdown in your position for 6 or 8 or 10 months or a year or 2 years or 5 years, right? So I don't want to do that. I want to look at things that have momentum on their side. Even a stock like Palantir, is struggling. This can't even get above, in the last 6 or 8 months, can't get above a simple 200-day moving average. So something like this is looking heavy. It's looking like it's on the struggle bus here. And these guys have earnings in about 5 days. I'll keep an eye on it. And if you're into predicting direction, you think some sort of move can be made here, have at it. But at least this year, momentum has been against Palantir. Whereas again, Hood had momentum against it for several months over here. It's made a significant move back up above, the going on the bullish side of this 200 moving average. It's coming back down a little bit, so we'll see if it holds. We'll see if earnings is the catalyst it needs to continue higher and potentially, cause some sort of breakout of this massive bull flag, if that's what it is. If it pushes it to the lows, right? If earnings come out and push this thing lower, well, so be it. That'll be an opportunity in and of itself. I will not be buying that dip, and I will not want to take that huge ride. But I think there are some good opportunities to watch and trade Hood. Option premiums are fantastic. There's money to be made as long as you have a strategy. And I'm going to write a little bit more about this and what I think the strategy will be and how this can be traded. But again, watch for option revenues, take rates, watch specifically for a little bit of crypto revenues. The prediction market's been adding to it. So Robinhood's looking at if it surprises big time on earnings, that's going to be very likely, the move and the catalyst needed to get this out of this kind of bull flag and into, a pretty good rally. I like Robinhood. I think the founders are doing good things. I think the fact that Robinhood's got some access to those child accounts, the Trump accounts where money's put in at birth and held there. It's never a bad thing to increase deposits on the books of these brokers. And Robinhood, is certainly pushing the boundaries in every space. They've had their ups and downs, but I think they're on a pretty solid trajectory now. And so it's just kind of coming down to, can they shake away enough from being so tied to the crypto markets and crypto commissions and revenues? And I think they can. I think they can do other things. Crypto will eventually make its way back, but I think there's enough other activity there that Hood is worth taking a shot at and looking for some trades. But you've got to have the right strategy if you're going to do a pre-earnings trade. Otherwise, wait for earnings and look for breaks of this bull flag. It's not the worst thing to buy at higher prices, because when you have momentum on your side, higher prices can always go higher, and certainly lower prices can always go lower. And so being stuck in these things eternally can be a big bummer. But I think there's some decent opportunity here. So I'll be watching Hood. I'm going to be looking for these specific things. Earnings are after hours. Keep an eye on some of the posts and some of what we look at and do, and we'll see where it goes. But thanks for watching, guys. Questions, comments, thoughts. I'm always happy to hear what you guys have to say about everything. And there we go. And we'll take it from there. But thanks for watching, guys. We'll see where Hood goes today. Should be interesting. So good luck, everybody. Happy trading. I'll post some updates as we go. Thanks, guys. Take care.